Welcome to the Builders of Authority podcast, a show committed to helping you build authority for your brand. In the realm of business and personal branding, authority stands as a cornerstone. Authority isn't built overnight, it's built over time. So join us as we build something remarkable together. And now, here's your host, Adam McChesney.
Welcome back to another episode of the newly rebranded Builders of Authority podcast. Today's episode is going to be like none I've ever done before. It's an in-person episode, but today's guest has known me longer than anyone else that will be a guest on my podcast. This is an episode I've been excited about for a long time, but also a little bit nervous because this person's really important to me and means the world. So he's got an incredible track record as a lawyer over the past 20 plus years and has spent many of those years as an entrepreneur. I've learned a lot from him and just in all areas of life. So I'm grateful for this opportunity to have a conversation that I believe will be one of the best, if not the best, recorded podcast for many reasons. My guest today is my dad, Brian McChesney. Dad, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, although I gotta tell you, you've slighted me out of 12 years of my career.
Oh, okay.
32.
Okay, for some reason,
Actually,
that's on me.
I studied for the bar exam holding you on my shoulder walking around because that's how old you were. So,
Okay,
yeah, it's been a long time.
For some reason, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess I was off on my numbers.
That's all right. Hey, you were a kid.
Forgot that I was 32 as well.
But thank you for having me. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, so super excited. So I would love to just kind of get your journey as a whole in the law space. And then I know people were asking when I told them that, my dad was coming on the podcast. They're like, well, we want to know more about you from his point of view. But before we dive into that, tell people a little bit, obviously, about kind of your journey. I know we have people that are interested to kind of know that as well. So talk to us and start there.
Well, I'll try to be. It's been a long journey. It's been a great journey. I was an English major in college. Didn't know what the heck I was going to do with an English major. And I figured, I'll go to law school. Didn't have any lawyers in the family, and I did it. Didn't really know what it was going to be. So I kind of backed into it. Went to law school. You were born, actually, while I was in law school, which made it actually interesting. Because a lot of them didn't have it, and a lot of people didn't have kids, but they were great years for your mom and I. And so when I graduated, I didn't really know what I wanted to do in the law. I knew I wanted a job. That's what everybody wants. Had no idea. I just kind of tripped into my first firm, a litigation firm, which ended up being, although it was just a random occurrence, a phenomenal experience. And so the past 32 years, my niche in the law has been litigation. I defend people, companies that have been sued for money. And so I am one of, I guess, 10% of the lawyers in the country that try 90% of the cases. So I do trial work. I love it, but it wears on you. But I don't know anything else. But it's been rewarding, crazy, fantastic. At times makes me a little distant. There have been times when you guys were young and I would go to your game, and after the game was over, did we win? Because I wasn't always there. Yeah. But it's been very rewarding. Can't imagine doing it any other way, although, as you recall, I always told you, if you want to go to law school, I'm not helping you.
Yeah,
So,
I do remember
I wouldn't
that.
necessarily encourage it for others, but in any event, no, it's been really rewarding for me. Met wonderful people along the way.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know you talk about, like, obviously the journey being 32 years. Some of those years you worked for somebody. Some of those years you ran your own practice and then have been a partner at other firms. Like, what was, going back of all of it, from the entrepreneurial standpoint, what made that, like, the pros and the cons of that versus working for somebody else?
Yeah, so I started out, like every other young lawyer, first 10 years, just an employee, if you will, but great experience. And then I had my own firm, McChesney and Ortworth, for 17 years. And after a switch, basically, in the focus of my practice, I'm now a partner at Rynearson, Suess, Schnurbusch Champion. And obviously as a lawyer, your job really is to practice law and to represent your clients. But to be honest, it's a dog-eat-dog thing. And so in terms of being an entrepreneur, I always say, what do you call a doctor without patients? Broke.
Yeah.
What do you call a lawyer has no clients? Broke,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's a what have you done for me lately business. And in the context of the work that you guys do, we, once upon a time, let's say 20 years ago, back when we had the traditional yellow pages, those big, thick books, we would pay like $20,000 a month to get the double truck right in the middle, because when people got hurt or they needed a lawyer or whatever, they would open that up and you were there.
Mm-hmm.
$20,000 a month. Well, the book went away.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's evolved to the point where everything's digital. And now I'm seeing lawyers in the old days, everybody carried a briefcase for a few years before actually doing work. I'm seeing young guys and gals graduate from law school. They haven't practiced a year, but they have a phenomenal website,
Mm-hmm.
and they have business,
Yeah.
which they would otherwise not get.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that can sometimes be a good thing or bad thing for the clients, but it has changed the dynamic substantially, because it used to be if you were experienced and you were a successful trial lawyer, cases were just referred to you by word. Now, doesn't matter, because half the time, what do people do when they're in a pinch? They're on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking in the dark of night, and it's really changed the dynamic
Yeah.
substantially. So it's been interesting.
So you talk about how you were in that kind of like dog eat dog world to like now going back and obviously being a partner and things like that and doing that stuff. What was like a shift or a focus of where you're like, hey, like I wanted to leave a little bit of that dog eat dog world to go to something different?
Well, it's still dog eat dog. So for basically my career started 10 years defending companies and people who have been sued, sometimes rightly, sometimes wrongly,
Mhm.
right? Heck, there are plenty of people out there who get sued. The other driver in an automobile accident is asking for money for injuries that he or she didn't have when they left the scene of the accident that day, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I did that for 10 years. I then switched over, and with McChesney and Ortworth for 17 years or so, I represented people that had been hurt by drunk drivers, semi-tractor trailer, all that stuff. I went back to where I came from, and now at Rynearson Suess, I'm back to the defense side, because ultimately the burden of representing people who are injured, which I took very seriously, it just wore on me to the point where, I had a case, one of my last cases in 2018 with my dear friend Craig Ortworth, who I still talk to every day. But I represented a very nice lady whose fiance and their 2-month-old were rear-ended by a drunk driver who had just come from a bar. We knew where it was. Just ridiculously drunk. Rear ends the vehicle, bursts into flames, and, baby beyond recognition. Husband, like they needed dental records. And when you win that case and you hand her this check for a lot of money, there's no joy in that. It's dark.
Yeah.
So I decided, for my own mental state, it was time for me to go back basically to the other side. And, it's no secret that in the law there are issues, people struggle. And so I did it for my mental health, the quality of my life.
Yeah.
So that when I went on vacation, I wasn't, worrying about, things that I otherwise don't worry about now. More practice law, but it's all quality of life.
Yeah. And I think that goes into a bigger, I think issue just with like entrepreneurship. So you're talking about like just literally what you had to do, not to mention like figuring out how to pay the bill, like figuring out like,
I
accounts
could tell you
receivable,
this. So here's the classic thing, and every lawyer, particularly lawyers, the vast majority of law firms are 2 to 5 lawyers. And and by the way, smaller isn't worse. The best lawyers that I know, in terms of trial lawyers, are in what we call boutique firms because that's all they do.
Yeah.
They don't do traffic tickets. So they're phenomenal. But you can have your little to-do list at the start of the day. You get there and these are all the things you want to do in the practice of law. But guess what? Every time the phone rings with a prospective client, you answer it. Right. I had a lady who once called me, so at the end of the day, it becomes frustrating because you end up practicing at night, doing your work at night. You still have to do all the marketing things, right? But it would become frustrating because I once had a lady, true story, who called me and swore to God that she bought some cereal and it had mouse turds in it. And you have to listen to all these calls because what if, right?
It's the
call. She's telling me over and over and again, she found mouse turds in her cereal. It was Raisin Bran, dude. And I'm no joke, but I listened to that story and had to work my way through it for 35 minutes. And it was Raisin Bran, no case. But you can have days where you get those calls all day. And then you realize, but you still have all the legal work to do and all the other things. So that's what makes the practice challenging. For smaller firms who are truly entrepreneurial because they have to juggle all of those things. Whereas now in the situation that I'm in with a larger firm, you have office manager, you have people who do things. I can actually practice law, but it's a truism that I think every lawyer understands, but it made it a real challenge, because there's no structure.
Yeah.
You're you never stop.
Yeah.
So
I think it's like, I was just trying to relate to it because I'm like, my phone blows up all the time, which isn't a good thing because we have hundreds of clients and I can't even imagine, like, I'm trying to fathom what it would be like in your situation when there is actually like serious stuff. Whereas like somebody's like, hey, change this picture on my website. But like that to them is like earth shattering where I'm still like, but I'm like, guy, like our team will take care of it tomorrow.
I'll share you my thought because I think it's different for me at my age, but how do you handle that? So like, do you find that because you guys, essentially, I say you guys, people are in their late 20s, their 30s, you kind of grew up almost with cell phones, the internet and all those things. We didn't. And I think it makes it harder, but do you find that to be stressful? Do you find that like, to be preoccupying? Because I'll tell you my experience on that. I'm just wondering how that affects you. Is that a stressor for people that are in their 30s who grew up with it? Or do they just look at it as kind of life and you deal with it? But I mean, what do you think?
Well, I used to wear it as a badge of honor. As like when I had no clients or I had 10 clients, like when people would reach out to me after hours or
anytime of
like
day.
it'd be like, hey, like they'd be like, that's why I switched over to you because you took care of me. Well, now it's like I have hundreds of clients and my team is the one doing all the work. So like, even if I can answer you in the moment, I can probably go fix it if I want to, but like, that's not the best use of my time. And now that I have a family, it takes away from my family. So what I used to like be so proud of is now like one of the biggest deterring factors from like the mental health standpoint of like, I will put my phone down like after hours, whatever. And I will go back before I go to sleep and I will have 30 messages because that's just the environment in which we live in. And most of my clients come off of social media. So not only do they have my cell phone number, they have my email, they have my Instagram, they have my Facebook. So like, I think people do it. Like I set the wrong expectations from the beginning of what
it's part
reality,
of the learning process.
Part of the learning process.
So I have two thoughts really on it, which are in the same vein. So I'm almost 58 and like so when I started to practice law and by the way, I talk with a lot of other lawyers in their late 40s and 50s who feel the same way. But when I started practicing in 1992, I had like at that time what was a really awesome computer, but it was just one of those box things. We had no internet, we had no cell phones. I was one of the last lawyers that I knew to actually get a cell phone. So let's say it was 2003. But thinking back to those days, and even into the 2000s, because for a long time, not everybody had cell phones, not everybody had email, we weren't doing texting, they were flip phones. But for 2/3 of my career, at the end of my day, I went home. I didn't have a laptop. We weren't using them. Nothing really was done digitally.
Mm-hmm.
If once you went home, your time was yours. You weren't even tempted to go check your email.
Yeah.
You weren't tempted to get on. And more importantly, nobody was trying to reach you.
Yeah.
Now, everything that's, if it was an emergency, it would be the next morning. So in terms of my clarity, my home was my sanctuary. Like it was my bubble in the world. Or if I had to get in the car and drive 3 hours to some random courthouse in the middle of Missouri. Now, granted, I do like the GPS in my phone. But the bottom line is that now all of, our clients, judges, other lawyers, they expect you to respond at midnight, at 2 o'clock in the morning. So it's kind of crossed our wires because our brains, guys, gals in their 50s, we didn't grow up, and suddenly in the middle of our life, it's changed it to the point where it's like every little ping, 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 ping. And I don't know, lawyers have issues anyway. Depression and anxiety is high. So it's I don't know that I'll ever totally adjust to it, but I'm trying to establish boundaries using these little focus things to send people messages to, right? But you never have you don't have quite the peace you used to have. And I would imagine it's probably the same for you.
Yeah.
Different ways, but you feel obliged.
Yeah.
And they get irritated. They expect it because they know you have your phone.
Yeah. No, it's a total mind game.
Me to you, right? By the way, one of the great things in my world is I have grandchildren now. Yeah. Did you know that?
I did, yeah.
But truly, that is the grand quest in life, to balance your career, your drive, which is admirable, with peace of mind and quality time and learning to be present, like truly present. The older I get, the more I realize how little I know.
Yeah.
But to be present so that you can enjoy every single little thing. And that can be hard sometimes when we've got ping, 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 ping. But you know what? They can wait. And if they can't, they'll get over it.
Yeah.
But it's a challenge, isn't it?
It is. Well, it's one of those things where it's like, I reference what you said earlier about like, did we win? Like, you're at the game, did we win? Like, there's times where it's just like the day goes by, I'm like, what even just happened? And then you get home and you're like, okay. Well, like,
it's blurry.
It's blurry. It is. And it's like, it's hard to, I look back at when I was in medical sales, and it's like, those are some long days sometimes, but it's not, the stakes are that much higher when you're doing it, on your own. And I don't ever remember a day of being like, what happened? But like, it happens.
It's foggy.
It's foggy. It happens.
It's blurry.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So, so you guys played sports, and of course, I always knew the soccer, in part because that was my sport. A lot of times I was coaching you, but an example would have been when Alec, your brother, was playing high school basketball. Listen, there's not much better than being in a high school gym on a Friday night with the band playing and your kid in the starting lineup. But there were games, it would be a Friday night, and I'm thinking about something happened in court yesterday, something's going to happen on Monday, and there were games that would be like, okay, we went, did Alex score? I just wasn't there. So, yeah, it's the grand quest in life. I think all you can do is, the key to addressing it, I think, is just being self-aware.
Yeah.
If you know that it's an issue, then you can work on it. There are things that you can do. And I've been reading some. Have you ever read the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius? It's fantastic. I mean, it resonates even today. But I've kind of been reading the stoicism part of the world. Hey, if you're worth it, people will forgive you if you don't respond in 2 seconds, or even tomorrow. Because presumably, if you're as good as they think you are, that's why they hired me, that's why they hired you. Presumably, they understand that there are other people that need you too, right?
Yeah.
But it's the grand quest.
Mm.
It's the grand quest. It's we want to put our heads on the pillow at night and have them not be spinning so we can sleep.
Yeah, it is. So transitioning a little bit, I guess kind of just going into like when I was growing up and things like that, as far as like, I think a lot of people, you know, are like a lot of people that follow this podcast are like, know who I am today, only know me from like the last 1 to 4 years.
Yeah.
For the most part, right? So like tell the audience a little bit, because I'm sure people will enjoy this, of like what your interpretation of me was growing up.
Wow, you're trying to really make me misty-eyed.
Well, I'm asking the tough questions.
Well, I will get a little emotional. I mean, you were obviously my first of my kids, so always loved you. Dude, you're a freaking warrior. Little misty-eyed here. So can I tell a couple stories?
Sure, yeah, knock it out.
So I'll speak in third person. Adam was a phenomenal athlete, and we all had that point in our life. I remember when I was a kid and I reached 100 pounds. It was a big freaking deal. I'm 100 pounds, right? And same deal. I think you were like 11 or maybe 12, and 100 pounds, 110, 120, and you know the story I'm going to tell. But I remember the day you came downstairs and you're like, Dad, I only weigh like 98 pounds, which I knew. I'm like, no way. Because a lot of times when you were like 112, you'd show it to me. So I knew. Well, we go back up and you get on the scale and it was like 98 pounds. Oh, something's got to be wrong with the scale. Well, it wasn't. Well, so we knew something was wrong. You were 12. And I remember telling your mom, I mean, I know enough. I do a lot of medical, legal stuff. I knew enough to know. I said, I'm praying to God this is diabetes. Because what else? You know, leukemia, cancer. So then we took you in to Dr. Motir. He does the work. You remember, he was a very direct man. I just remember him saying, Adam, you're going to be fine, but you have type 1 diabetes. You can take shots. You're going to be fine, but we're going to send you. I remember you dropping to your knees and saying, Dad, I don't want to die. Scary, right? Let me tell you, you did more with that than anybody ever could have imagined. And for those people who don't have what it's like to be a diabetic and managing the highs and the lows and the way it makes you feel, it's particularly difficult when you're playing soccer. And this is a guy who would, run for 90 minutes. It was just, it was inspiring. And you maybe didn't know it, but you're defying everything, managing your own insulin, and you were a freaking warrior. In fact, I don't know if you remember this, but you just didn't, it's not just that you played every minute of every game and were so good, but it's that you did it without a flinch and nobody knew about the little Skittles in your pocket to change things. Do you remember being down in Arizona and your body, I just remember it was hot out. You remember your body cramping up?
Mm-hmm.
So much that we couldn't move you. We had to drive a truck on the field, pull you off. But so for those of you who don't know Adam, and for those of you who know enough about him to know that, oh, he's a good soccer player and all that, the backstory was that most doctors would have said, running those long distances, how do we regulate all that? How do we do that? Well, you found a way. You found a way. And it was truly inspiring, whether you ever knew it or not. Dude, you were a warrior.
Appreciate that.
So everything else that came after that, none of this has been a surprise to me. I interview young lawyers all the time. I interview lawyers that have been practicing a while. I'm open-minded, but I like to hire people who have either been athletes And by the way, you could be on the meat squad in high school, never played an actual down, but went through, 2-a-days, got your ass kicked.
Yeah.
Playing sports, in the military, grew up on a farm, got up every morning. Like, those are the people, like, I'm looking for intangibles. Ran a marathon.
Yeah.
Because there's something about that ability to forge ahead, just burst through that physical pain. That if we can do that, then the stress we feel and the anxiety we feel in the real world that's kind of minimal, really, isn't it? But when you think about it, when you're really stressed or anxious, it does take an effect on our body. But that's why I like people like that. But dude, you're my hero and you didn't even know it. I mean, truly rewarding, so thank you.
Thank you.
It's a tough thing to do, but I mean, truly inspirational to me. So
appreciate you sharing that story. I didn't remember. I remember bits and pieces of the story.
Oh yeah,
but I don't remember the whole thing. So it was
yeah,
good to hear back.
it's very sobering. Of course, obviously, we came to learn, didn't we? The only difference between you and everybody else is that your insulin comes from a bottle, and in many respects, yours probably better than mine, but it was a very foreign thing, right? But yeah, no, dude, that actually, what happened was Dr. Motier told you, I then walked out in the hallway. I think I was calling your grandmother, but when I walked back in the room, that's when we were there. And very sobering to see your 12-year-old thinking of that, right? Nobody wants that. But let me tell you, it probably was something that boosted you in life. Would you be the same person that you are today? Would you be as driven as you are today? I mean, bottom line is, it taught you that you can overcome anything. I always say, improvise, adapt, overcome. There is nothing there's an answer for everything. But anyway, I hate that it happened to you, right? Yeah. Rewarding in a way, right? And you pass those lessons along to others, including your children.
Yeah, no, it's been. I tell people all the time. I said, like, if I am laying on my deathbed and that's the worst thing that happened to me health-wise,
that's right.
Then I'll take it all day.
That's right. But when you're, first of all, 12 and life is otherwise good, and then you're told this, it's scary. Same for parents, because we were managing, like, we were sleeping with one eye open at night, because we didn't know. But you know what? Life is hard. It is hard. There's nothing rewarding about a life that isn't hard. I mean, honestly, when you think about it, but life is supposed to be hard. We are all going to have something. None of us just die at the age of 100 by falling asleep quietly. And it's going to be something, right? So, and it's prepared you. It prepared me for example, when Morgan had the same diagnosis, or it's going to prepare you for when whatever's going to happen. I don't know if you remember this, but between the 4 of you kids, all being athletes, I'm not sure exactly how many surgeries we've had between, we should have a wing over the,
a lot
at Dr. Medler's office, right? Broken bones. But you know what? Those things will happen, and you're prepared to recognize that they're going to happen, and we're going to be just fine, right? And honestly, that experience has helped even me with my clients, because all I can try to give, I already know what the result will be at the end of the case, but it's that peace of mind thing. Always like, what if something's happened? What if something's going to happen? Well, something probably is going to happen to us in life, but we'll be okay.
Yeah,
because we adapt, we overcome. Such is life, right? So you have to find the positives, in the struggles, and without the struggles, you wouldn't appreciate even the positive.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. No, truly. I mean, every bit of it. Yeah. You didn't tell me I was going to have to go down that.
I didn't know where we were going to go, but I figured we'd
it wasn't just there. I wasn't just me that got a little misty-eyed.
Yeah, no, I did as well. It always is good to think back about everything that's happened and just remember it, right? And
Yeah,
remember the life is short, and always good to go back to some moments that you forget about.
Yeah. I mean, I heard, I don't even remember where I heard this not too long ago, but I have on my phone a countdown timer that's set for my life expectancy. You know, we all have statistical life expectancy, give or take, right? So I have it on my phone. And it's in 1/100th of seconds. So it's not just hour and second. It's so you just see, just a reminder. We're all dying 1 minute at a time, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
And we never know if we're going to get that next minute. So that's one of the things I've kind of learned in law and in life. But that's a beautiful thing. That's not scary. It's not depressing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a reminder that, hey, this minute here is as good as it's going to get in life. I mean, by the way, I am truly present here. This is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's the goal for all of us, because when we're entrepreneurs, and I know your clients, people you work at, we're hungry, right? We don't just want to go work somewhere. Like, we want to build and develop and all that. But we have to be careful that we're not always building for something like, oh, if I can just get this much revenue coming in, or if I can get this much money, or get this, then I'll be happy. No, it's the joy is in the climb to the top.
Mm-hmm.
Getting there is great.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing that I've learned over the years, is that the joy is in the journey, because sometimes you don't make it, but it doesn't mean it's still not a hell of a lot of good time. Yeah.
Oh, this was awesome. Well, we'll finish up the episode here, but
Sure.
Any last pieces of advice, anything that's on your mind? Finishing up this.
Advice to whom? Live large, enjoy life, family first, everything else, if you're a good person, not perfect, good, will take care of itself. And I've kind of developed like my own thing. There's no need for perfection in the world. And many entrepreneurs struggle with the desire, the need, the feel, oh my gosh, everything is perfect. I think in the grand scheme of things, perfectly imperfect is just fine.
Mm-hmm.
And it will serve everybody well to kind of process that, because if we're striving for constant perfection, we'll never sleep.
Mm-hmm.
We'll never be happy.
Mm.
So
thank you so much for coming in. This was
Thanks.
awesome.
Thank you. I
I'm
appreciate it.
Really glad this is
Yeah, your
Yeah.
your grandmother and grandfather, I turned them on to the YouTube channel. They finally got YouTube on the TV.
Yeah.
So no, I appreciate it, and congratulations on this. This is a really great thing, and just keep on being you. The world's a better place because of you.
I appreciate it. And this is an incredible episode. So make sure that not only you subscribe to the episode or subscribe to the podcast, but make sure to leave us a 5-star review. We're making a big push for reviews this year. And if of all the episodes, if you listen to this one, definitely leave us that review. It definitely helps us move the needle. And I know I'm excited to have this episode for forever.
Yeah.
So authority isn't built overnight. It's built over time.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We sure do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. This way you'll get notifications as new episodes become available. If you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. We sure do appreciate it. Until next time, friends.